Hey, this is my broken BMW. I bought this car for 15,000 crowns, which makes it the cheapest E92 in the country.
This BMW 320D was abandoned and ready to die after it left the previous owner stranded. And since we haven't fixed a diesel engine in a while, when it popped up for sale, I knew I had to buy it and put it back on the road. Previously, we stripped the engine down and found out that the timing chain broke, which led to catastrophic damage to this BMW diesel N47 engine.
If you guys watched the last video, you know that the car is not in a great shape. But today, we're gonna put this car back on the road. At least I hope so. We can see that there's some bird action that has been going on here. But a lot has happened since the last video. I was on vacation to Lithuania and I got the head refurbished, resurfaced and ready for installing. I also picked up a bunch of parts, also a headlight. So now I think we should have everything to make this car driving again. By the way, I also had the injectors tested, so they're perfectly fine, perfect to use. Let's not waste any more time, get this car inside and start repairing it. So dirty. I'm still not sure what we should do. If we should pull the engine out or if we should drop the gearbox and then the oil sump. Oh, there was water. Cylinders still look great. Now I'll just put the hood in the service position. Now unplug the coolant pipes. This coolant pipe. Now I want to remove the intake pipe, which is like the charge pipe, I mean. That's a long ass pipe. Now I will remove the alternator, just so it's not in the way. And then I need to undo the AC compressor, just so we can still leave it in the car. So I see a bunch of sealant on the oil pan, so that's why it's not leaking. Now I'm undoing the housing bolts all around. So I moved the housing bolts all around from the bottom. Now I undid all the housing bolts and there is now a little gap between the gearbox and the engine. Now I'm not gonna put the car all the way on the floor but I'll put it on the lowest setting on the jack stands, in case if I need to still undo something I can fit under the car then. And the engine mounts. But now my question is, usually there are special brackets on the head. Okay, so the back is on. Then I will put on this bracket. Now we'll support the gearbox with a jack. The gearbox is supported. Yeah, I need to fully undo the steering column. Oh, that was a pain to remove. So on this N47 engine, the timing chains are on the back of the engine. They are right here behind this case. So that's why we can't put the engine stand the standard way on this side. We need to put it on the side of the engine. There are special bolts for it. And now in order to do that, we will remove the turbocharger. So first the oil return. Another day, another me, ladies and gentlemen. Now I will remove the case cover together with the rest of the timing chain, and then we can start looking towards the rod bearings. Well, right now the engine is upside down, so here is where the head is. First thing, we need to release the sprocket of the high pressure fuel pump. First remove the cap. Now you need a special tool, so you need this tool. The way it works, you thread in this tool, that's fine. And then you need to release the bolt. I'm gonna use an impact like that. And now as you're gonna loosen the bolt head is gonna sit against the tool that we threaded in, and that's gonna release the whole sprocket of the high pressure fuel pump. And now it's on tension. I feel it's touching the tool. Now I'm gonna do it a bit more. Okay, I need to do it with an impact. I'm gonna put it back in now. Then I will remove this special tool that we threaded in. Yeah, now I see that the sprocket is loose when I'm shaking it. This tool, it threads into the sprocket. So that's how it works. I'm gonna put the bolt back in for now. Now I will start undoing all the case cover bolts. That should be all of them. There's also this one. This bolt holds onto the high pressure fuel pump. Now I will remove the old gasket. Yeah, here's the broken piece. Now I want to undo the oil pump sprocket. I think this is reverse thread, but I'm not 100% sure. But I do have the bolts that I need ordered, and I can see on the new one. So here I have the oil pump bolt, the high pressure fuel pump bolt, and the upper camshaft bolts. And the oil pump, yes it is reverse thread. We will need to drop the whole oil pump to change the rod bearings. At least the sprocket is original BMW. Oil pump chain doesn't seem that bad. Now I am actually gonna compress the tensioner like that, and I'm gonna lock it like that, so it's easier to work with. I had the spin from the other jobs that I did. Remove the guide rail. I am gonna put the guide rail bolts back in place, just so I know the length of them when we put everything together. This bolt, just like that. We can remove the sprocket and the chain. I am gonna put the sprocket back on with the old bolt. And lastly, the chain. No, I can't really feel any play in it, so I'm not sure. It's pretty good, I guess. Now all this is good, so I will flip the engine over again, and we can start removing the oil pump and start doing the rod bearings. It is held in place by these hex bolts. So we need to remove the oil pickup in order to have access to the last bolt. Pull it out. Yeah, that's completely clean. Not a single debris that you can see inside. So longer bolts in the middle then, 3 pieces. Whoop. So let's remove the oil pump. Let's remove 2 of the bearings and inspect them. This is the front of the engine, so that's number 2. That is number 3. So you can see some wear. It's definitely not new, but nothing that you can feel with your hand. Literally nothing. It's completely perfectly smooth. Basically nothing that wouldn't really polish out. Yeah, so now I remove the bearing. Then here I have a standard size bearing set. Rod bearing set, I mean. So then I have the correct bearing. There you go, that bearing is in. Then I'm pushing this one down. Push the bearing to the side so it releases. And then lift it out. Firstly, I lined the little notch in the bearing into the groove, and then I used my other finger to push it down the other side. Now that one is aligned. Then I push the other side completely in. Just like that. And carefully pull the rod bearing and the rod up onto the crankshaft. So now we will check the clearance as well real quick using plastic gauge. We don't really need to do this because we're using standard bearing size, but I have read on forums that there were instances of people getting the wrong bearings, like manufacturer defect and stuff like that. And if you put that in without checking, you can have some funny business after. So now remove the bearing. Then you line up the notch and push it down in place. And here's the cylinder number 3 with brand new bearing. Then here's the old bolts that I oiled up. And then for the final installation, we will use brand new bolts. So then the torque is, firstly, 20 Newton meters. Then it's 70 degrees twice. And now we can release the bolts. That looks pretty same. The clearance for the rod bearings must be between here, we can see 0.015 and 0.050. And now when we look at the diagram, around 0.038, and here as well 0.038. So that's perfectly perfect, exactly how it should be. Now with a bit of brake cleaner, I am wiping off the residue and also wipe off the bearings. I will push the conrod rod slightly down, give them a little wipe, and I will give it a little assembly lube, which I'm gonna spread out with my glove. Pull the rods up onto the crankshaft again. That's number 3. Number 2 as well. And then brand new rod bolts. Then I'm putting a bit of oil onto the new bolts. Then we do the same torquing procedure again. Firstly 20. And then we will do 70 degrees twice. It is always scary doing it the last bit. Good that we took the engine out of the car, because this would have been annoying to do under. Done! Well, at least these two. Now I need to do the outer ones. And it spins still just fine. Now I will do the other ones real quick. I'm not gonna film that. These ones are around 0.038 and 0.038. So all these bearings are perfect for this engine. So now we'll just torque them down real quick. That's it. That is all the rod bearings done. Now we could put the oil pump back, but I think we will first inspect it. Just split it real quick and see how it looks on the inside. Let's see if we can split this oil pump real quick to inspect. Then one more at the bottom. I think if I just undid all these bolts, this part should come off. That should be fine. Okay. So you can see there are some marks, a few. It's definitely not brand new, but I think it's gonna be fine. Not that bad. And then here everything looks fine. I don't think I will take it apart even more, because if there was some damage we would already see it here, because then we need to take off this thing and remove this thing. Yeah, so I'll just put it back together because I see it already. It will work fine. I don't think it has any problems with the oil pressure. Not sure what's the torque for these bolts, but probably like 15 or something. I'm just gonna go snug with my hand. Then back on with this plastic. Yep. Now I will reinstall the oil pump. Just have to make sure that the O-ring is still there and everything. Yes, it is. Firstly 15 and then 90 degrees. Then it's 90 degrees. So now I still have a little problem. I haven't received the dowel for the head. The engine did have it, but I think when I gave the head to refurbishing, they removed it and they forgot to put it back. So now, because one of the dowels, it was stuck in the block and one came out with the head. So I didn't even bother to take it out. Yeah, so now the dowel, I ordered it, supposed to get it tomorrow. Now, remove the oil spray nozzle as well as the timing chain tensioner. Then on with the new one. Then the oil spray nozzle is torqued to 10. Then the timing chain tensioner. Then the bottom chain tensioner is torqued to 10 Newton meters as well. Then I have the new high pressure fuel pump sprocket. There is a notch in the sprocket which has to line up with the notch on the high pressure fuel pump, just like this. Then I have 3 chains. The shortest one is of course for the oil pump. Yep. We're not gonna put this on yet. Then we have 2 chains left that are pretty similar length. The way you can tell them apart is one is a bit thicker than the other one, and the slimmer one is the top chain. This is the chain that usually breaks. So then we can put on the lower chain. You just need to make sure it's still in the notch. Then I'm just gonna put in place the new high pressure fuel pump bolt, just so the sprocket doesn't fall out. And now we can put on the guide rails. Now it's good that I took a picture of how the guide rails are. Just makes it easier when you put it together. Now here's the guide rail that I'm lightly lubing up. Seems like I need to undo the sprocket. Before I put the bolt in for the guide rail, I'm gonna install both of the guide rails. Then I'm installing this guide rail. Now I'll put back the bolt for the high pressure fuel pump. The guide rails, they are torqued to 20 Newton meters each. Then I'm adding a little bit of oil. Now we'll tighten in the bolt for the high pressure fuel pump. And we will torque it down later, slightly later. Now we can remove the bolt for the oil pump together with the sprocket, like that. I actually thought there was a new sprocket for the oil pump included with the timing kit, but there wasn't. It's only the upper sprocket for the timing chain on the camshaft. So we will actually reuse it. Original BMW, so no biggie. Then on with the oil pump chain. On with sprocket. In with the bolt. I put a little bit of thread lock on that bolt because I really don't want it to back out, and there has been instances of them backing out. Then the torque for the oil pump bolt is actually 5 Newton meters, and then it is 90 degrees, so a quarter of a turn. Before we torque the bolt down, I will release this tensioner. Technically now you would need a special tool which bolts up to this and then bolts up to the block, and that keeps the crankshaft from spinning, and then you can torque down these bolts, but I don't have it. So now we need 90 degrees. I'll try to do it by holding the crankshaft like that. That was 90. Since it is reverse thread, I had to calculate. So 360 minus 90 is 270. There you go. I will release this thing. I doubt it that it's gonna work, but I will try to do it the same way with the high pressure fuel pump sprocket bolt. Now the high pressure fuel pump sprocket is actually torqued to 65 Newton meters. Perfecto! Because technically you're supposed to put the flywheel on or the flex plate if it's automatic and then plug it and then tie this bolt. This you can access, so this you technically do some other way. But a pretty nice tip to do the lower bolt at least. Loop the chain up real quick. Now, here's the head. Before we continue putting the head on, we'll use a long brush and brake cleaner to clean out the head bolt holes. Now we can put it up again. A little bit of oil in the cylinders. Then I also cleaned up the complete surface of the gasket, so it's perfectly smooth. All these lines and stuff, these are just visual. Or actually I'm gonna put in the dowel. Let's put the head on. That's on. That is also on. Then the head bolts, which I'm just oiling right now. Then here are the old bolts. Okay, so the new bolts has like the wider head, so there's technically no washers. Yeah, and they're shorter, so if you measure flat by flat side with the washer, they're the same length. Now in with the bolts, making sure that they are oiled similarly all the way through. So this engine has actually weird torque for the head. So first torque 70 and you work your way the middle out. And now you need to release all of the bolts 180 degrees. Work your way from the outside in. And then you torque them to 50 again, inside out. Now comes the fun part. So then it's 120 degrees each bolt. And then now it's again 120 degrees. Oh, I don't like this. And the last one. Okay, next thing I will do, I want to install the glow plugs because the last ones were completely stuck. And when the guy removed them, the thread on them was like very bad. So I picked up new ones. Then I put on a little bit of copper paste on the threads. Let's hope the relay is good, because I'm not gonna change that. I'm not gonna torque them to spec. The spec is probably like 10 or 15 Newton meters, so I'm just going by feel. Now the temperature sensor sits right here. Now that's the head sprocket unit. Pretty good design because you don't really need to open up anything. So now I'll put the lifters in. I'm also inspecting them again, just so I'm sure there's no any more damage. Like that. And then, as we know, 2 lifters were broken. So here we have new lifters. I know technically you need to replace all of the lifters. Here are the 2 new lifters. I'm actually gonna put the chain in first. Like that. Then in with this guide rail. And now we can put on the case cover and the flywheel, and then we can lock the crank. Okay, now we can finally put the flywheel on. There you go now. Now cylinder 1 should be in TDC. Yes, we'll make sure that all the lifters are in place.
When the timing chains break on this engine, a very common problem is that the camshaft carrier cracks and breaks. So I carefully inspected the camshaft carrier and the camshafts itself for damage, and it had none, so I'm reusing the old ones.
Now I will put on the camshaft locking tool, which goes over the camshaft like that. And before you torque everything down, you have to have the crankshaft in TDC position, so the flywheel locked. And before you put this tool on, you have to make sure that these two dots on the camshafts right there are into each other. Because the way the camshafts lock is this slides over it, like that. So then the camshaft carrier to cylinder head is 13 Newton meters. Now we'll remove the old camshaft here. So here I have the new upper camshaft sprocket. I'm gonna put it on, fits pretty good, and I'm just gonna let it rest to the side as I will install the last guide rail. So now, since this guide rail has the opening here, we will put the lower bolt in, then we'll just clip this in place, and then we'll put the upper bolt in. Now I'll put in the guide rail. Yep. Now we can put the sprocket on. You have to install the sprocket wheel. You're able to see all the bolt holes, and they're not close to a corner. They have to be plus minus in middle. Now the way the repair manual states you have to do this, you install the bolts in, you tighten them down, and now you torque them to 10 Newton meters. Then you release them by 90 degrees. And now it's like loose, so the camshaft can adjust itself. You take the new upper tensioner, so now you install the tensioner, and then you torque it to 70 Newton meters. Now you torque the sprocket bolts to 17 Newton meters. And that's it, now the engine should be in time. And now to double check the timing, I will turn the engine over a few times. Like that. Now I lock the flywheel again. And now let's see if this tool fits on. We have the timing correct. Fits perfectly. So you can see that the timing right now is perfect. Now I can remove the flywheel again. And the case cover, so we can install the gasket and seal it up. Then the gasket, so here we have the gasket. So even though there's already a little bit sealant, I'll put this little bit of sealant on the contact point. Yep, now we need to somehow install this thing. And then this long one into the high pressure fuel pump. So now all the case cover bolts are torqued to firstly 8. Then the high pressure fuel pump bolt is 11 Newton meters. And then it's 90 degrees. So that means it's a quarter of a turn. All except the high pressure fuel pump bolt. There you go. And now the high pressure fuel pump plug. Now we can install these bolts here. Now we need to install the main seal, rear main seal I mean. Here we have the new gasket. So the oil sump is torqued to 24 Newton meters. Done. The oil pan is on. Here is the valve cover. I washed it as best as I could because it was very oily. So it seemed that I had forgot to order the valve cover gasket, but it's good that a long time ago I accidentally ordered 2 of them. That's why I have it. So now the valve cover is on, and that is gonna be around it for this video. It is a pretty long one already and I don't want to make it longer. So in the next video we will fully finish putting this together. We need to put on some small things, injectors, stuff like that. Then also the turbocharger, and then we can put it back in the car and start it for the first time and see how it runs. Well, I hope it's gonna run good. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you'd like to support me, I have a Patreon in the description. So make sure to check it out, and I hope to see you in the next one.